Well, it's April, and that means that the NFL draft is right around the corner, and we're so excited to talk a little bit more about the Vikings strategy here in the 2025 NFL draft with NFL Network Analyst Charles Davis. And Charles, you and I have not caught up since the NFL Combine, and the Vikings have made a flurry of off-season free agency moves. Was there one in particular that stands out to you, and how can that affect the NFL draft moving forward?
I like their moves on the offensive line because I really like Ryan Kelly coming in at the pivot. Look, Garrett Bradbury's done yeoman duty there for his entire career. So you always feel like, oh my goodness, you're bringing in someone else, you're just discarding. I don't think we should discount what he's done, but Ryan Kelly's a bigger, thicker, stouter guy. And in the NFC North, you can't underestimate that with what you're dealing with the defensive front you're going to be dealing with Detroit. Green Bay, I think, is going to try and get bigger in this draft coming up in their offseason as well. Chicago, we know the moves that they have continued to try and make, and we know that they want to really focus with a new defensive coordinator. So when you think about that with him and Will Fries, and remember, you're taking Fries more on the, hey, we've seen it. He got hurt last year, but if we get him full time, he's going to be something for us. And then, of course, the counter is you're bringing in a Hargrave on defense, on the defensive front. I just like the moves that have been made. A lot have been made of Chicago's, and rightly so, right? Hey, we're winning the offseason. We're winning free agency. Don't sleep on what Minnesota's doing in free agency as well, because I think that they've got some great value and some really needed pieces to go into an already good football team.
Yes, this front office was very intentional with the areas of need that they targeted. And they picked 24th in the first round of this year's NFL draft. You know, that's been a sweet spot, actually, for the Vikings in the past few years. You have Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, and Jordan Addison all picked within that 22 to 24 range. When you're in that part of the draft in the first round, Charles, what is a front office's mindset heading in?
I think for most front offices, it almost gets trite when we say it because you know what I'm about to say, right? Best player available. Right?
Yeah.
You hear it everywhere. But I really think that is the mindset of most of them. We always go back to the, this is for old people like me, but Michael Jordan comes out of North Carolina. The number 2 overall pick was, Hakeem Olajuwon was the number 1 overall pick. Back then, you always drafted a center. Boom. No ifs, ands, or buts. The number 2 overall pick was going to Portland, and Clyde Drexler was there. Now, Clyde Drexler was eventually named one of the top 50 players of the first 50 years of the NBA. So it wasn't like Clyde Drexler couldn't play. But they turned down Michael Jordan because they said, well, we've got Clyde Drexler. That's really what we've got. So we'll go get a center. And it didn't work out very well. I think most people say, if that player is as good or better, get him anyway. Because you're fortifying your team. Maybe the deal is for the other player instead of that, but you see where I'm going with this.
I do, yeah.
So that's get to that best player available. You make your team better by having better players, even if it doesn't seem to be a position of need. But I also think that if you've got a tie on your board, position of need versus best player available, if that score matches, then I think you lean towards position of need. You're going to supplement your team because it's the same score. You're not breaking the tie or you're not manipulating your board, because that's what the really good ones do. They let the board speak to them.
Yeah.
We act like we're draft whisperers and all that. But that's what I think tends to happen. And where you're sitting right there, you want to be picking in these spots because that means you're a good football team. I mean, you just had a really good year, but it also puts a premium on your scouting and your picking because you're not picking what seems to be the sure shots right at the top of the draft.
Yeah, totally fair. As we record this right now, your mock draft 2.0 is out right now on NFL.com, and you have the Vikings drafting the safety out of Georgia, Malachi Starks. Why do you think he would be a fit here in Minnesota?
Because one thing I like about really good organizations, I think the Vikings are one of those, is that you're drafting not just for now, but you're also looking ahead. And one of my favorite players of all time is your hitman, all right, Harrison Smith. You have to plan for that day, right? You have to know that this is going to go down. Starks is the type of player that I think can emulate what Harrison has done throughout his career. I think you can use him in a variety of places. I like him best as a high safety, single high safety, running the alley, making plays in there, physicality, speed, intelligence, all of those things. And every time I've watched Harrison Smith play, I used to call him the fixer. And I have to be careful with that because now with gambling, everybody thinks I'm doing something else. But he was a guy that if anything was going wrong on defense, I remember when Mike Zimmer was your head coach, I just had this vision of Zim going, Harrison, fix it. And he put him in that spot and plugged the hole, and that would end right then and there. Malachi Starks could be that type of a player. Now, it's a long way to go to get to be Harrison Smith. Don't get me wrong, okay? But you have to plan for that day. And him in the secondary. Because remember, Lewis Cine was the pick a couple years ago, thinking, hey, we're planning for the future. Unfortunately, the broken leg his rookie year didn't quite pan out. Doesn't mean you shy away from that type of a selection again. I could also very easily see them going cornerback at that spot because I think some good corners are going to be available right in that sweet spot you talked about where the Vikings are going to pick.
What are some of those corners that Vikings fans should, do a little bit of research on before we hit April 24th?
No, if I know the Vikings fans have already done the research. They know who
right.
they are already. But Jahdae Barron from Texas, I'm not saying in any ranking order. Will Johnson coming out of the University of Michigan. Keep an eye out for a Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, who's been an awful lot of boards due to injury, but I'm hearing the medical rechecks are really good for him now. Most people have him going in the second round, but I'm telling you, he is a terrific football player. So those are some of the guys kind of at the top of this thing you're going to see. And if they don't get them in the first round, you can go deeper into it. A Savon Revel from East Carolina who's coming off of an ACL, but boy, was he tremendous. And I'm hearing that he's really looking good on his return. A number of corners are going to be in this draft, and I think more of them are going to be rounds 2 and on than there are going in the first round. But if you've got one, I do think a number of the top corners might be pushed down by other positions.
As of right now, the Vikings do not pick again after that first round pick at number 24 until the third round. When you look ahead in the draft at that far ahead, what position could you say you could still get value at in that third round?
In the third round, listen, offensive and defensive line are both really deep. There's going to be value there that you'll be able to select people. Some of it will be projection, college tackles that you may want to move into guard, that sort of a deal. If there's someone you particularly like at the center position, now you're starting to get there, even though you just brought in Ryan Kelly. So that offensive line is there. Defensive front, whether it's an edge rusher or big guys who play in the interior, I think there are going to be a lot of people there. And I also think we're starting to get into that run of wide receivers, running backs. I think that's when we're going to start to really come off the board. Look, if we're going to keep playing the NFL game the way we're playing it, if we're going to be playing football the way we're playing it, where we're pitching it more than we're, I'm talking about throwing it more than we're pitching it, backs, we're always going to have receivers. But this is more of a year where there's quantity, much more so than that top of the board wide receiver to just go crazy for. And I think you're going to start to see a bunch of them come off the board in the third round.
You mentioned that about the running back situation. The Vikings added Jordan Mason and re-signed Aaron Jones. However, you're looking towards the future. If you could pick a name in the running backs of this class that could fit into that style of play, maybe to complement either of those two. We also have Ty Chandler in that room. Who would be a name that you would think of?
That's going to feel like a homer call since I'm a Tennessee grad, but Dylan Sampson from Tennessee fits that mold very, very well there, I think. The ability to run it in between the tackles with some force, knows how to find the end zone, 18 touchdowns last year. He's one of those guys who I think that fits that mold that you're looking for. I think as you go along and you're starting to look and say, hey, if you want some explosiveness, there's a young man named Bashal Tutin out of Virginia Tech, who I believe ran 4.32 at the combine, who can flat out get up and go. And remember, he started last year with a brace on his knee, shed the brace, and just took off and never looked back. He's from North Carolina A&T, transferred to Virginia Tech, and put up big numbers. Those are two guys that just immediately caught my eye. And in my mind, I think to myself, yeah, they kind of fit what Minnesota wants to do. Kevin O'Connell's going to want to have those versatile backs. If you want people who can catch out of the backfield that you can catch down the road, a Brashard Smith out of SMU, formerly University of Miami. Wide receiver, kick returner, turned into a full-time running back at SMU. Put up big numbers, but he's an elite pass catcher. And Jaden Blue out of University of Texas also kind of fits that mold where he can catch the ball in the backfield. Something that I know your head coach doesn't mind at all to increase his passing game.
No, he definitely does not. And with the additions on the line, I have a feeling this offense is rearing and ready to go this season. But Charles, thank you so much for your time. You can watch Charles on the NFL Network. He'll be anchoring the NFL Network draft coverage from April 24th to 26th. It's only a few weeks away.